This is my experience living in a haunted house for 6 months. In 2023, I decided that I wanted to move out my family home just to get a bit of my own space and do my own thing. Side note, I do not recommend this. If you can stay at home with your parents, save your money and stay. Anyways, so I was looking to rent in London originally, but we all know London rental prices is just like through the roof. It's insane. So I actually decided to move to Reading, which I did. And when I was like looking for a place to stay and a place to rent, I found this really beautiful house share in Reading, and it was really like affordable for what it was. And I got in touch with the people and I did an online viewing, so I never actually viewed it in person before I moved in there. Then everything happened really quickly. I paid my deposit and then within like a week or two I moved in. First impressions, everything was so nice. There was no smell, the kitchen was well kept, my room was really nice, like everything was clean, my bathroom was like brand new. And then I met all my housemates and they were all such nice, lovely people. So I was really happy and I just, unpacked my bags and got settled in. So my first night I was just exhausted because I spent the whole day moving, settling in, and I was just so exhausted. And when I first got into the bed and like laid down, I just felt like a really weird presence. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It was just like a weird vibe, but I just brushed it off and I went to bed because I was just so tired. I didn't care, to be honest. At that point I thought, okay, whatever, I'm gonna go sleep. So after my first few nights staying there, I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something was so wrong. Like, something was off. Like, when I was getting ready, I just felt really like eerie, and it would be like a very uncomfortable like silence, a very uncomfortable like atmosphere. And then it started with nightmares. I started to get the worst nightmares, like vivid nightmares, and I used to wake up in the middle of the night like sweating and my heart pounding. So I spoke to my mum and tried to explain it to her that I'm having this really weird like feelings in these nightmares, and she literally was like, Isla, don't worry, maybe it's because you moved into a new place, you're just like overthinking everything, like don't worry, just pray, and you'll be fine. So whatever, I still couldn't get a good night's sleep, but I just pushed through it, like, you know what I mean, like I just tried to get on with it and get on with my life. And then one day I woke up and my whole railing was like, my curtain railing was on the floor, but I didn't hear it fall in the night. And like, obviously it could have been just like a faulty curtain. So I just text my landlord and whatever, they sorted out, but I'll put a picture here of like what it looked like in the morning when I woke up. So yeah, I actually took this picture later on in the evening because that morning I was rushing out the door for work. But yeah, this is the curtain and how it fell on the floor, and I heard nothing in the night. My curtains got fixed in a few days, that was no problem, but even within those few days, imagine sleeping on the ground floor with no curtains. Like, I was scared because I was thinking, what if someone's like peering through my windows? But I survived. After that, I started to hear and smell stuff. I would hear like knocks and taps in the night, and I would smell the most revolting, disgusting smell. But during the day I couldn't smell it, like I wouldn't smell it. So I went to my housemates and I said to them, like, are you guys hearing these taps and these knocks in the night, and are you smelling like what I'm smelling? And they all were like, no, like I don't know what you're talking about, like we don't hear anything, we don't smell anything, like it's all fine for us. So out of curiosity, I asked them who lived in my room before me, and they told me there was this one girl that they rarely ever saw. She wasn't very friendly, she wasn't very talkative, they just left her to it. And they said she stayed in her room for literally 24 hours of the day. She never left her room, but every time they would walk past her door, it would smell so badly, because my room's like the main hallway on the bottom floor. It would just smell so badly. And when she actually finally just randomly moved out unannounced, they had actually a little look in her room. So this is when she handed in her keys. They had a look in her room and they literally told me there was piles of trash and dirt and rubbish everywhere. There was like just stuff everywhere. So I was just getting really freaked out because I'm putting all of this together in my head and I'm just thinking, what was this girl doing in this room? And I was just getting more scared. And one night I went to sleep and I felt a pressure on my stomach. Like, I don't know how to explain this. I was dreaming and I dreamt of like somebody coming over me, and I woke up, but I still felt like I was dreaming and I couldn't move. Like, I just had this presence and this like really heavy force on my chest. And I literally felt like I was like that forever. And then eventually, like, I kind of shook out of it and I was crying. I was like literally so scared, but I had nowhere to go. So I just had to like, I literally got up and I prayed and I just went back to bed, but I struggled to go back to sleep. Like, I felt like I was awake the whole night. So after that happened, the next following days, like obviously I was really scared. I was struggling to go to sleep. But after a week or so, weirdly, everything just felt fine. Like, I just didn't feel like scared anymore. I didn't feel a presence anymore or anything. And I just got on with my life. Like I just forgot about it, and I just was going to sleep fine. Like I wasn't waking up in the night anymore. I wasn't really having nightmares anymore. And it just kind of felt like everything went away, or I thought so. One day I was working from home and I hear a screech and a bang, and I look towards my window and I see a bird has hit my window and fell. And I quickly jumped up literally within a second to go look out my window, and nothing was there. Like nothing was there. I can swear to you guys, I heard a screech and I saw a bird hit my window and it just dropped. And then nothing. Like when I was looking around, I was looking out the window, checking to see if there's any marks on the window. There was literally nothing. And I was just like so freaked out because I was like, what the hell? More of like, oh my God, like a bird has just died and hit my window. And then it started again. I started to get nightmares again. I couldn't go sleep at night. I kept hearing things again. I kept smelling things again. It just started all over again. And then I had another similar experience where I woke up in the night, felt like something was on me, but I couldn't move. And that morning when I woke up, I kind of smelled like a burning smell, and I freaked out and I texted the group chat going, has anyone burnt something? Like I can smell a burning thingy. And they were like, no one's burnt anything. So I went to go open my curtains and a clump of blonde hair was sitting there on my windowsill inside. To let you know, there was nobody living in the house at the time that was blonde. The girl that stayed in my room before me, she was not blonde. And also, if you think back to when my curtain broke, my curtains got replaced. So I had brand new curtains put up, and the guy who did put my curtains up was bald. There was no way this blonde bit of hair would have just been laying in my windowsill. There's no way. So this is the piece of hair that I found, and if you look close you can see like it's knotted, like somebody's got a bit of hair, wrapped it up and then knotted it and then placed it on my windowsill. Even looking at this photo again just gives me jitters. Like it really freaks me out. So after I saw that, I thought, nah, there's no way. Like how the hell can this get there? So I flashed it down the toilet. Now I should have known I should have burnt it, but I flashed it down the toilet, packed up my bags, and I left because I thought there's no way in hell. The bird, the hair, the noises, the feeling of someone being on top of me in the night, you know, like the smell, like everything, the nightmares. This was it for me. And I was like, what's going to happen next? Like, what is this? Like, it looks like black magic. So I packed up my bags and went straight back to my mum's house, and I had to keep paying rent for the next couple of months, but I was just so scared and I just couldn't live there.
Back from lunch with my friend and her mum told me this story, and I literally have to say it all now before I forget any of it. I'm going to give a trigger warning as well that this is a ghost story, and it also includes family grieving loss. So in her early 20s, my friend's mum worked at like a construction company. Despite having loads and loads of money, the guy who owned the company always stayed really nice, really humble. But whilst they were really lucky in terms of like contracts and business, their family life was quite unlucky. She said that they were just one of those families that you were just like, do you have a curse? Dad had passed away suddenly. His wife sadly got very sick and died when his kids were still fairly young. He also had a daughter who was around her age. I think she said there was about 6 months between them. Around 25, my friend's mum gets married and then she falls pregnant with my friend. My boss, on seeing this, starts to kind of compare his daughter's life. Starts to make comments that he is kind of worried about his daughter because she doesn't really have any friends. Feels like she's kind of been lost since mum died. He asks my friend's mum to kind of take his daughter under her wing. And the two of them build up kind of like a friendship, but not. She said that they didn't have much in common, but she was more kind of just doing it for her boss because he was such a nice guy. And she kind of felt like she owed him big time because when her own dad had passed away, her boss had been really kind and let her have lots of time off. Eventually, my friend's mum goes on maternity leave, and in her place, her boss employs his own daughter. And it's actually at her dad's work she would meet her future husband. I call him George. You've probably noticed in that I'm not using names, and I'm still like some people on here will probably know this family. And I know this is probably a well-known story, but I'm not trying to get in trouble with gangsters. So eventually maternity's finished and my friend's mum is back in the office. At this point, the boss himself is looking to retire. George is one of his best workers, and so they decide, since he is going to be a son-in-law, that it would kind of become like a family business basically. They start to branch out into like property developments. It starts to pull in so much money that the boss can start to take a chill pill, relax, and he actually takes up golf. One day she comes into the office and there's a sign to say that the boys have gone to golf and they're going to head to an auction to buy some more properties afterwards. The afternoon comes around, and when the boys come back to the office, they are obviously drunk. And straight away she's like, Jesus, don't tell me they've been to the auction like that. And they have. They are giggling like schoolgirls because they have bought a dilapidated school. Victorian school just outside London where they were living, planned to do it up, and then that was going to be the daughter and the son-in-law's marital home. It was also this day that George had actually asked for the daughter's hand in marriage. Just as everything is going well, like it always would with this particular family, there was a huge tragedy. One day whilst at the golfing place that they went to, the dad, the boss, had gone into the showers. He'd had a heart attack and he died. No one even has time to grieve. Actually, it turned out that there was a lot of debts hidden that no one knew about. Finding it very difficult to keep the business afloat. Friend's mum said that gangsters type people would just randomly turn up at the office and be threatened to smash stuff up if they didn't get their money. It was all really shocking because to everybody, the boss had seemed like stand-up guy. You never really know someone. And so despite actually not getting paid for her last few months of work, my friend's mum decides to stay because she even though they've discovered this guy was essentially not who they thought he was still like a dad to her, and she's lost her own dad, and so she feels like it's kind of her duty to be there for the daughter. She recommends this psychic medium who was really, really famous in the area at the time in the 80s and the 90s. She had been to this woman a lot herself when her dad first passed. Her name was Patsy and she lived in one of the flats that was just off of Roman Road. First time she went, my friend's mum was like, I will take you. I don't feel comfortable with you going alone. I know your dad wouldn't like it, so I'll escort you there. I can wait outside if you want. When they arrived, the boss's daughter actually asked my friend's mum to come in with her. And this woman was notorious. Always got things dead on. She was amazing. She always had a fag in her mouth. She was probably only about 60, but apparently she looked about 106. The daughter starts to really open up about some really scary stuff that's been going on in their new house, which is all news to my friend's mum. She had solely taken her there to speak to her dad. This poor girl had been waking up at night feeling like there was men in her room. Considering all the nonsense they had going on with the gangsters turning up and demanding money, she had kind of put it down to her subconscious mind. But now she was in front of a psychic, she felt like she just had to offload. Things would go missing, there'd be loud noises, she would wake up with scratches on her body. There was a man there and that he was trying to hurt her. Patsy, who is normally hardened, proper Londoner, is just speechless. She looks petrified. She's almost gone into some sort of trance-like state. She does speak. What she says is so disturbing. Takes a cigarette out of her mouth, which apparently she never did. There is a man in your house. A very bad man. And again, she goes into this trance-like state. Can you imagine? And she starts closing her eyes and chanting, I've made a mistake, I've made a mistake, I've made a mistake. She comes round. I don't know what I said. Can you tell me what I said? And so the two women are like, you said you'd made a mistake. The psychic at this point looks so disturbed. She says that's never happened before. Whatever is in your house is very, very evil. Patsy, who never left her home, actually agreed to go to this house and do a cleansing. When Patsy gets there, she does all of her little ceremony thing and she says she's actually surprised at how friendly the house seems. She can't feel anything straight away, but they do everything anyway. The daughter and Patsy kind of become friends. At this point, the daughter and George, the partner, are due to be getting married and they've decided to have their wedding at their home. Financially, everything with the business has just gone down the swanny. The boss's daughter actually ends up inviting the psychic Patsy to their wedding, and my friend's mum is the designated driver since they're both driving from similar places. The minute they stepped into that house, Patsy was in a trance, to the point where, because this woman is obviously quite old, she considered calling an ambulance. Nearly there, even an hour before she's like, I've got to get this woman home. She is not okay. So she gets her into the car, and at this point my friend is like a baby in a car seat, and as they're driving home she lights up a cigarette and my friend's mum's like, whoa, 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 my kid's in the car, absolutely not, stop what you're doing. And she just totally ignores her. She starts to speak in a voice that's like a male, low pitched voice, and she proceeds to call my friend's mum, I'm not going to say her name, but a pet name that only her boss, the one who has passed, would call her. I've made a terrible mistake. Then the pet name, and she just repeats it on a loop. My friend's mum is so freaked out. So now she's thinking that her dead boss has just been speaking to her through a psychic, telling her what a mistake he's made with either buying this haunted house for his daughter, because it's obviously like haunted by something evil, or he himself is admitting that he has made a terrible mistake. At this point, every day is just bringing a new bit of like scandal of the things that he's been up to. Loan sharks left, right and centre. So she goes home and she discusses it with her then husband. He's just like, do you know what, I would rather you just separate yourself from this family. They've always been problematic. There's always been like drama that follows them, and you're not even being paid now, so you might as well just, you know, just cut it all off. And so she kind of thinks to herself, you know what, he's right, I've got a baby to take care of, I need to separate myself from all of this drama. A few years later, she has a new job, she works for the council now, and she's also had another baby since then. And one day, one of her new colleagues asks if she knows a psychic. So without any hesitation, even though the last time they spoke was really odd, she gives Patsy's address and tells the colleague where to find her. She actually had no idea that Patsy's been dead for like a year and a half at this point. And then one day, while she's still working in her job at the council, somebody comes in looking for housing. And it is none other than the boss's daughter. And at this point, it's been 10 years since they last saw each other. She walks in there and she is like a shell of a woman. Turns out that George was actually part of this massive crime family, like he was a total wrong'un. And she thinks that it was basically his plan all along to bleed their family dry. She'd also found out that he had like a long-term girlfriend living in a different country who he basically intended on taking money home to. A lot of the dodgy loan shark stuff was actually him, and he'd been asking his future father-in-law to sign stuff when they'd been out golfing. And he's signing it thinking that he's signing business-related stuff. He's trusted this guy. And despite her sisters coming to her with all of this new information about how they had suspected George had something to do with her dad's death, because he was there that day when they went golfing and the dad just dropped dead, she had stayed with him. One day she confronts him about this like alleged girlfriend that he has, and he starts to be violent towards her for the first time ever, while screaming at her about her alleged boyfriend who lives in Roman Road. And so my friend's mum thinks that George might actually have been the one that committed the arson and killed Patsy. She doesn't think that she better sleep with a cigarette in her mouth like everyone else thinks. Patsy arrived at the schoolhouse that day. The only difference in that house when Patsy went to do the cleanse was the fact that George was home. As far as my friend's mum knows, the last she heard, the family, the gang family, George and his family, had actually moved country. And word on the curb is that they are involved in some like magic, like not good magic. She has no idea where the boss's daughter went. Her family name was pretty much dirt. So to summarise, this is what I'm assuming. The mistake that the dad felt he'd made was allowing his daughter to marry this man. The reason Patsy was so freaked out is probably because she could see the future and see that this guy was eventually going to kill her. George went and killed Patsy thinking that his wife was having an affair because she was going to this random address in Roman Road. And the schoolhouse was haunted by the dad himself, who was trying to warn his daughter. And the evil person that Patsy saw living in that house was the guy that was alive, was George. And for the sake of not being abducted by East End gangsters, I'm going to say alleged. Allegedly. Alleged.
As someone who drives around Ireland very late at night, things do get strange, and here's a few supernatural stories I have. I'm going to stick a trigger warning onto this video, so if you're scared or easily spooked, go now. We were told by our friend Kieran that there was this haunted house in just outside Larne, outside Belfast. We didn't think much of it, we were stupid. We said, not a bother, we'll go up for the crack and we'll see what happens. A lot of you probably have heard of Carindoo House, and it's a house I'm not advising anyone to go to under any circumstance. Put a picture up on the screen, but this was the house, and we were stupid, we didn't really know what we were doing, and we just said we'd go in for the crack. Went into the house, it was eerie, it was dark, nothing happened. Whatever. And we were messing around in the house and nothing really happening, a few pictures and videos there. And at the time I was with my ex and my best friend and his ex. And we left the house not really thinking much of anything. Nothing spooky happened inside the house. And we were on the grounds, and the grounds were there. And we were like, whatever. And I'm looking over towards my ex, and she's looking into these bushes, and I'm like, what the fuck are you looking at? As I'm looking at her, my eyes get drawn up to the balcony, and I see this white figure. And I thought, oh, my brain is being stupid, because at the time I didn't really believe. Lo and behold, immediately after seeing the white figure, I look towards the stable, and I see this massive, massive black shadow, and you can physically hear it running. Liam hears it running, and we won't lie, we ran, we fucking ran. The girls started pissing themselves laughing until they looked behind and they saw two big black shadows, and we legged it. And ever since then, we had a shit ton of bad luck. My ex had a video up that she took of in the house, and there was a room which I'll show up on screen. Go back a moment. Yeah, that is the clearest proof ever. So stop. Face, body, arm, just watching us around the door. If that's the clearest proof I've ever had of what it. And as you can make out, there is a demon standing there who was following us the whole time. There's his body hanging on the door. We had horrendous luck. I think it was probably a few days after the original lad, Kieran, he went missing. No one knew where he was. And there was a bad crash up outside where he lived that a similar car that he drives was involved in. It was all over RTE. Lucky it wasn't him. But I went up anyways to see if we can find him, because no one can find this lad. Lo and behold, the very moment I have him, I get a call down in Waterford, because there's an instance that's after taking place involving one of our friends. We drive down anyways. We had to call the guards. Thank God the guards came in time. As we're down in Waterford, and you can't make this up, straight up, my ex gives a call and says, Simon, I'm after crashing the car. And my heart just fucking sinks. I don't know what we've done, but it wasn't great. And upon reflection, she had gotten talking to a girl who has done tarot cards and all that, and said there's this spirit that we horrendously offended and angered, and her friend who done the tarot card was able to describe each of us without ever meeting us. And I'll put up the writings on the screen. We shit ourselves, and I got talking to Mam, because I'm a Catholic. Mam's a very, very strong Catholic, and she goes, look, be smart, be sensible, go to confession. So we decided, yeah, we'll go to confession. I asked my ex to come to confession with me, and funny enough, a lot of people don't realise that confession is a form of exorcism. So we went into knock, and she went in before me, and all I could kind of feel at the pit of my stomach was this overwhelming sense of joy. There is no way to describe it. It is simply just the Holy Spirit that goes into you, and it was the right thing to do, and everything got better to an extent after. However, for myself, it wasn't over. Lo and behold, a few days kind of go by, and it's about 1 o'clock, so 1 p.m. So it's not late at night, it's the middle of the day, and I'm at home sitting on the sofa. Not stranger sighting, watching TV, don't know what's on. Watching it there, and it's like as if you get sucked into your own head, and sucked into my own head, and I'm up at the house, up in Mayo, and outside was 6 demons, and they were possessed in the form of a girl and 5 nuns. Demons will always try to mock Jesus in some way or another, and they came up to me, spitting and scratching, screaming blasphemies, everything under the sun. You're shit, your God has no power over us, absolutely all of that. And I was scared. I tried to spit out a Hail Mary, couldn't get it out, and they seen I couldn't get it out, and they kept laughing at me, and screamed at me. The only thing I could spit out when I was backing up from them was the St. Michael's prayer. He came down and immediately without fail lifted, and I was back in real life. I have never ever had that happen before. It was a demonic trance, and it kind of explains some of the stories on the road that I see. The only thing I have to say is never ever go anywhere near that house in just outside Belfast. Stay the hell away, and the only kind of thing we can do is thank the Lord, like you thank Jesus. We would, especially myself, I'd be lost without him. It was a horrible situation.
Welcome to my story time about a paranormal experience that happened to me and my boyfriend in Devon. Now, first of all, ignore the bruising on my lips. I've just had lip filler down. They are very swollen. They're not going to be this big. And yeah, I know this looks awful, but I just have to make this video while it's still fresh in my mind. So we went away for a week with my mum and stepdad to this cottage that we went to last year in Devon. And last year we were making jokes about how it was haunted and there was just like weird stuff going on. But nothing really happened last year. It was more of just like a running joke. So we were saying like, oh, we're going back to the haunted cottage and all this. But yeah, we did actually experience some paranormal and it was quite scary, to be honest. I've never experienced anything like it, and neither has my boyfriend. So just for context, there are 3 bedrooms upstairs and 1 downstairs. My mum and stepdad slept downstairs because of the dogs, so it's easy to take them to the garden in the night, etc. Me and Dan slept upstairs in the main bedroom, and then there are 2 other bedrooms upstairs which have single beds. Mickey's mum, which is my stepdad, stayed for a couple of nights, so she had one of the rooms. There's this one specific bedroom at the end of the hall which is just creepy vibes, and we were making jokes about it last year. So we walk into this house, I go upstairs to the end bedroom and I shut the door because I don't like the vibes. It's just creepy, right? That's just for context. So the first night we went to sleep, we were just laying there, me and my boyfriend, and I was actually drifting to sleep and I suddenly feel him grab me and I literally jumped out of my skin, but it's because he heard a woman go across the room. Now, I didn't take it serious because we play this game called Phasmophobia and there's literally like a ghost in it that makes that noise, so I thought it was quite funny at the time. And I was like half asleep and I was so tired, so I didn't really take it serious. I was like, look, it's probably nothing. But like, that's the first thing. I mean, that's a bit weird anyway, but I wasn't freaked out at this point. And he said he could hear voices, but like he just went to sleep. He thought he was imagining it because obviously we were talking about it being haunted. Next morning, he was downstairs sleeping. My mum and stepdad were out walking the dogs. I had a shower and I came out as I walked across the hall. So there's a hallway, so there's our room, the bathroom opposite each other, and then there's a hallway. At the end of the hallway is that weird bedroom. Walking across the hallway, I just felt weird and I thought, I'm just overthinking it, right? I was drying my hair and I felt like someone was standing like here. You know when you feel like someone's right behind you or watching you? I'm getting goosebumps. But yeah, it just felt weird, so I stopped drying my hair and went downstairs because I was getting like weird spooky vibes and I just was not there for it. For the next couple nights, nothing specific happened, so it was actually alright. We were still a bit freaked out, but again, it's like not enough proof to be like, oh my god, something's going on. At this point, we were just like joking around still. Then Sunday came around. My mum's dog, Dexter, suddenly just started being really weird, like he was crawling along the floor, his tail was down, he looked really scared. Nothing had happened. And this is what he did the previous year, so we were like, oh my god, he's doing it again. And obviously, because of the creepy stuff, we were a bit like, right, what is going on now? He kept going behind the sofa, under the table, for absolutely no reason. We couldn't figure out what it was. And then we were sitting out in, like, the dining room playing games at the table. And he just kept walking up and down. He kept going into the downstairs toilet and just sitting there, which is really unlike him. So that was a bit creepy. And you know what they say? Dogs can see things. So, obviously, we don't have any proof of that, but it was just a weird thing, nevertheless. I don't know if it was this night I'm talking about or the night before, but my mum also said to us that in the night she heard Dexter or Poppy, her other dog, walking around, or like she thought that she felt a dog walking around in the bed. And she woke up and both the dogs were asleep, so she thought that was a bit weird. Just keep that in mind. When we're in bed and Dan FaceTimes his parents, we're like joking around about it. And as a joke, I start researching into the cottage and so do they. I don't really find much. I find something about a woman who got shot years ago, like down the road, and like there's a pub that's haunted. I didn't find anything specific about the cottage. And then we hung up the phone to them, and his mum sent us something she found, and I looked it up as well, and I found it. It literally said the cottage is haunted by a friendly man and his dog. Literally got chills, because I was like, oh my god, my mum thought she heard a dog walking around. And Dexter is so scared of other dogs. He hates other dogs. Like, what if you can see this ghost dog, right? It's just weird. But apparently this guy is known to haunt this cottage and the pub by the seafront. And it kind of made sense, because it would seem like he'd be there in the morning, like this spirit, and then go for the day and then come back at night, which is almost like how he would have lived his life, like living in this house and going to the pub with his dog. And then obviously he's haunting the pub, but he's friendly, so we weren't like scared, like, because nothing bad came up, but it was still a bit creepy, because we were like, how did my mom think that there was a dog moving around, but there was no dog before we even knew there was a ghost dog, of all things as well. It was just weird. The night after that, Dan heard like a woman moan, not like moan, but like, you know, when you just hear like a distant woman's voice. But again, he just kind of like didn't think about it and was like thinking he's probably hearing things. And if you do sit still in the cottage, it's like dead silent, because obviously it's in Devon, so there's not like loads of traffic and stuff. And it's not, I know people are going to say like it's an old cottage, it's going to creak, but if you genuinely sit in silence, it's just so silent, you can just hear the silence. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, if you're just in the middle of the woods and there's nothing around, it's that in itself is creepy. Me, my mum and my stepdad with the dogs go to the beach one day, because Dan wasn't feeling up to going, so he stayed at the cottage and he was just playing Xbox and he was watching a YouTube video. So he was sitting in the living room and he heard footsteps, and like kind of the sort of thing, like thinking someone's actually come back to the cottage. We'd enter through the back door, which means they would walk, like you'd walk from the kitchen, dining room, hallway to the living room. He heard footsteps and he was a bit creeped out, but again, it's like, you might just be hearing things, it might just be because the cottage is old. It's like, you can't, it's not definitely something, if you know what I mean. He got a bit freaked out, but like he had to keep pausing his YouTube video because he could hear it still. And he phoned his mum, and his mum was like, yeah, it's a bit weird, like, but again, like, it might be nothing, there's no point freaking out, just go sit in the garden if you're that freaked out. And obviously we weren't out for long, we would have been back soon, so yeah, she was like, just go sit in the garden if you get too stressed out, because obviously like you're in the garden, it's nice weather, go get a bit of tan while you're waiting. But he was like, no, it's fine, and he got over it. And then all of a sudden he heard like bangs from upstairs, like not like from another house, because the cottage is detached. Imagine if you drop a phone upstairs and it bangs on the floor, the corner of your phone, like something quite heavy. He heard that, but above the living room is our bedroom, so when he said that I was like, oh my god, are you joking? But yeah, it's just weird. And then he sat in the garden because he got freaked out. And then we got back and he told me about it, and I was like, oh, that's actually a bit creepy. I went upstairs to have a look around. Nothing had fallen, and there's nothing to fall, if that makes sense. And we couldn't figure out what could have made the sound. Again, it could just be a weird bang, but it's unexplainable. At this point, I was like, okay, it's getting a bit creepy now. This is where I became the believer, right, as well. My mum and my stepdad took the dogs out for a walk, so me and Dan are just sitting in the living room, just chilling. He just told me all this, like, prior. I'd forgotten about it. And then if I'm sitting on the sofa towards the TV, the door is like here in your peripheral vision. Like, you can see like the line where, like, you know, where you look between the gap of the door frame and the door. And behind that is the light from the front door. There's like a line of light in your peripheral vision, right? So I'm literally getting goosebumps. I don't know if you can see. I heard a creak, like almost like, but it sounded like from like the other side of the house. And as I heard that, I looked at Dan and he looked at me. He didn't hear it. He saw, as if I'm literally getting goosebumps, as in like if someone walked past that the light in the door. As I heard that, I didn't see anything. I heard something and he didn't hear anything. He saw something. We were like, oh, what the hell is going on? And then I started to hear the footsteps that he had been hearing up the hallway. And I was like, okay, I walk out into the hallway. It just feels cold and there's nothing there. So it's just creepy. Now this is where it gets chilling. I can't even deal with this. It's Thursday evening, we're about to leave, right? We've packed everything up, everything's downstairs, everything's empty. We're literally about to go in like half an hour. I popped to the toilet upstairs and I heard my mom come up the stairs and walk like in each room to just kind of check through, make sure we haven't left anything. And it sounded like she went for a door, maybe, and then went back downstairs. Like, that's what I had in my head, right? Half an hour passes, and we're literally about to go out the door and leave. And I was like, me being me, I need another week quickly before we go. I go upstairs, and that creepy door that I closed at the beginning of the week was open. It was open by like this much. Like, when has that been opened? None of us did it. I went downstairs, I was like, have any of you guys opened that door? And they were like, no, why? And I said, Mum, was it not you when you came up to check the rooms? Nobody came upstairs to check the rooms. I was sitting on the toilet half an hour prior, hearing some fucking thing walking around, and I heard it open the door. No fucking cap. It's just so weird, honestly. Such a weird experience. Now, this may not sound scary to you guys, but to us, it was so freaky. I think it was one of those things like you had to be there to kind of feel how chilling it was. But there is no way we're going back next year. Nah.
I was best friends with a dead boy in a hospital that I didn't know was dead for an entire week. So unfortunately, when I was about 10 or 11, I got hit by a car, and the car had hit my back quite badly, so I did struggle to get out of bed and things like that while I was healing. And I became really good friends with the little boy who was in the bed next to me, and he had a broken arm, and because I was pretty much bedbound, we became really good friends. We'd play cards and things like that. Anyway, give it about a week into the stay, my mum took me for a walk around the hospital to go to the gift shop and stuff, try and get some movement in. And when we came back, this little boy had gone. And I was absolutely devastated. And my mum didn't quite know what I was talking about. She basically was like, I don't know this little boy. And I thought maybe she hasn't seen him, just because there was a curtain between us and things like that. And my mum obviously wasn't there the whole time. So my mum's gone to the nurse and basically explained that I really got on with this little boy. And basically, we'd like to get some contact details to stay in touch because we became really good friends. This nurse has then turned around and explained to my mum there was no little boy in the hospital bed next to me. There was no little boy. No one has been in that bed since I've been admitted. And obviously, at this point, I'm freaking out because I'm like, there was. So I've started describing this boy, like what he looked like, his hair colour, his eye colour, like his broken arm, everything that I could remember that this little boy had told me. And this nurse, bless her heart, her face drained of colour. It literally drained of colour. I was like, okay, what is going on? Like, you literally, like, you're about to throw up. And what unfolded next actually was my first experience with seeing a ghost, because she basically told me this little boy had been in the hospital in that bed, but he had died a week ago. He had died before I'd even set foot in that hospital a week ago, and I had been playing, in fact, with a dead boy for a week that I didn't know was dead. So yeah.
I've got a really creepy paranormal story for you guys. So this story has been spread far and wide in my family, and it's about my great-grandparent. To set the scene, this happened in about the 1920s, 1930s, and my great-grandparents used to travel the world and preach Islam to kind of like missionaries. So they used to go from country to country, and a lot of the time my great-granddad actually used to do a lot of like exorcisms and treat a lot of people who are believed to be possessed by like jinns, we say. So he used to literally go to villages all around Asia, all around Europe, all around Africa. But this particular story happened when he was in Kenya. So every evening, roughly around the same time, there could be a knock on the door. But this is when my grandma was just home, so she never used to open the door because she used to be really scared. So she went and complained to my great-grandfather and told him like someone keeps knocking on the door every evening. And he was like, okay, let me stay home and see who it is that keeps knocking on the door. So they were waiting patiently together for the knock on the door. And eventually, as expected, somebody knocked on the door. So my great-granddad went to go open the door, and there was a man standing there. And at first glance, everything seemed fine. But when my granddad looked down, this man's feet were twisted completely backwards. And the thing is, back in the day, communities were really tight-knit, especially villages back in Kenya. And there was nobody with like any sort of disability that had their feet backwards. And if you know, allegedly, this is said to be a jinn pretending to be a person. So this man ran past my great-grandfather and dashed under the bed and started screaming. So he started wailing, screeching, screaming under the bed. And the only thing my great-grandfather knew to do was pray. So he started praying, he started reading the Quran, he started doing dua to try and get rid of it. And eventually it literally just disappeared. It just literally disappeared out of nowhere. And as I said at the start, because they travelled a lot, not long after that, they just left Kenya to just continue doing their work elsewhere in another country. But he literally said every time him and his wife came back into Kenya, they always felt like a presence, or somebody was following them around, or somebody was like watching them. So yeah, that is the story that my mum literally used to tell me growing up, and it used to give me actual nightmares. And she used to threaten me every time I was naughty and be like, the man with backwards feet is going to come get you.